All right, black people, let's get global. Ibraham Traroe. Hood politics, y'all. Yo, I just did the serious announcer type vibes where you look right into the camera and say what you gotta say. I've never done that. Wow. Before we get started on this week of Black excellence and how the West hates it, if you're in the Los Angeles area, I will be performing at the LA County Fair on May 9th, starting at 6 at the fair. Duh. And with full band, the homie C4, the homie Shay, it's gonna be dope. Also, this Sunday is the Bastard Picnic or Bastard Barbecue with Scratch Bastard. Probably, I think I can safely say I know the world's greatest DJs, because if you could hear the rasp in my voice from Real Ones last night, shout out all y'all who pulled up. Hooked up with the homies at DP Sound. The homie First One apparently is part of the Zeit Gang, who is part of the Bridges crew, which is a lot of my history. This is very LA stuff for the rest of y'all. Essentially our hip hop scene and our weeklies and monthlies where you would hear good DJs and stuff like that. I'm naming names from that. But anyway, he's part of the Zeit Gang. Anyway, I say all that to say I've been around the greatest DJs I can say in the world. Beat Nuts, Beat Junkies, Scratch Pickles, the greatest DJs in the history of hip hop. I don't think I've ever actually teared up at how perfect a set was to when I heard Scratch Bastard play at this event called Boombox. I'm way off topic here, but I think this is important. I say oftentimes, a lot of these YNs, if you will, a lot of them, maybe not the young ones, but they kind of romanticized the 90s gang and turf wars and violence from the eras of our OGs, whether it's the NWA era or the Snoop Dogg era. And truthfully, I would not wish any of those times on my worst enemy. Just the heightened sense of danger at all times. You never relaxed. You're just freaking amygdala, your lizard brain just always in fight or flight. I wouldn't wish that on nobody. But what I would wish on y'all is our experience with art and culture. Man, being able to go down to Dogtown, see these skaters and empty pools and just culture being made, the scene that we kind of came out of with open mics and dance floors. We were out participating in hip hop a good 5 nights a week. That experience, these are friends that I still have to this day. A lot of the leaders like will.i.am and Black Eyed Peas, they were just a part of our scene, and just being in these moments. It's just, I feel like the famous Juice and Supernatural battle, the battle that Eminem got discovered on when he battled Otherwise at Elements at the El Rey Theater. We just got to witness such dope culture. It's amazing. Anyway, that's on some personal note. But now let's get into this Black excellence thing. I'm going to talk to y'all about something that may not seem like it has anything to do with America until you see how deeply American this play will become. And then later on this week, when we do the Tap In episode, we're going to talk about Ryan Coogler. And essentially, the same premise here is how America feels about Black excellence. Really how the West feels about Black excellence. Now, as I say this, it is important to remember, and I think a great example of this would be Diddy, that the government has conspired to take down many amazing, strong Black men. This does not make them heroes or innocent. Every nigga in jail ain't Nelson Mandela. This is not, y'all are not all political prisoners. It's just, oftentimes when it comes to the Black community, and I think in Brown also, but I'm speaking right now about the Black community, our whole diaspora. We're not allowed to have, our heroes can't be complicated. Our heroes can't have flaws and just be complicated humans who may have had good intentions or bad intentions or anything in between. So Diddy is not one of them. Some of y'all need to be up under the jail. And I'm saying this as an abolitionist. But I am saying when we start talking about our heroes, especially people who have fought for the liberation of black people everywhere, somehow or another, the West figures out a way how to make this man a villain. And that villainry is supposed to undermine all of our views for them. Y'all would call Black Panthers a terrorist organization. Y'all would Dr. King was a womanizer, which he was. Malcolm X was racist and hated it's like we can't have no Fred Hampton, the Black Messiah. We can't have nothing. Our heroes can't be complicated. Whereas you allow people like, Tricky Dick. I mean, just pick a white man. Hell, Mike Walls gets to keep his job. You talking about the man? No, this man don't get to keep his job. He gets transferred to a different department, and in my opinion, a much more fun job. Mike Walls, the homie that was the Secretary of Defense and added the Atlantic Reporter to his group text on Signal, no less. Rather than getting booted out immediately, they send him to be the UN ambassador. Boy, I tell you, rich white men just can't fail. Like, it is impossible for y'all to fail. Y'all got no flaws. And of course, the president himself. Well, he's rough around the edges. We a criminal, but I digress. Black excellence, independence, it scares the West. And I think it scares the West all the way back to the land grabs, the scramble for Africa. The West needs us, and I'm saying us as part of the diaspora, it needs us to need them. We see it played out in America a little differently, but right now I want to talk about abroad. And to get into this, I want to start with a little story, which I may have said before. I think I did in the USAID stuff. It's about, but if you didn't hear that episode, I'm going to rewind you anyway, because it's just follow me here. On tour in South Africa in 2017, shout out to homie Greg Cassim and DJ Easy out there. One of my brothers from Zimbabwe, and while we were on this road trip to Botswana to go perform out there at a church whose pastor is from Long Beach, no less. We were talking politics. I was into that. We were talking about what he thought about Obama. I was asking him about just the younger generation activists in South Africa, their views on Matiba or Nelson Mandela. And a lot of times they feel like he didn't go far enough. They, kind of played nice. And then he asked me if I had a political hero. And for me as an American, it's complicated. Like, I can't think of anybody like that. He was like, mine is Muammar Gaddafi. And I was like, record scratched. What? Gaddafi? From Libya? And I think that was one of those moments. Oh, then he talked about Cuba too. He was like, everybody I know has a Cuban doctor. That Cuba's been exporting doctors to Africa this entire time. And there's a very few times, because I consider myself pretty well traveled, pretty well informed. My daughter, don't tell my mama because she's going to be mad about this, but my daughter read my star chart, like the astrology type stuff. Don't tell my mama because then she going to show up at my house with the blessed oil, try to pray it out my house. But one of the things that she said was on my star chart is a curiosity about a wide breadth of things. And I'm like, well, that scans. I consider myself very well informed. But every once in a while, you have moments when you realize, oh, you are in a cultural bubble. You are in an informational sphere that informs the way you see the world. And nothing shakes me more than when I go to Africa and somebody says a sentence like that. Cuba? Like, or really? Like, Cuba? They're like, yeah, you ever wonder why they smoke cigars so well? And they don't be dying of lung cancer like we do? I was like, what? My homeboy from Canada, Greg and Chantel Denis, he told me they did their honeymoon in Cuba. I was like, you went to Cuba for your honeymoon? He goes, yeah, it's an American thing that y'all don't go there. The rest of us go there all the time. It's great. It's a dimension I just didn't know was real. So anyway, we did a bastard episode on Muammar Gaddafi. And I'm not here to scrub this guy's reputation. I'm just saying, we are totally unaware until it's made clear just how curated our informational bubble is. This man said Gaddafi was his hero. And part of why he said that is because he's like, very few African leaders dare to not need the West, to do what they got to do to make sure that they can take care of themselves. One thing Muammar Gaddafi was doing is he was removing Libya from the World Bank. That was one thing he was working on. He was working on a gold standard. I remember hearing Louis Farrakhan talk about it. And Louis Farrakhan is a complicated figure here too, but he is an example of somebody that's out of our information bubble. The problem a lot of times, even with that understanding, is in America, is the fact that like some of the other information bubbles be conspiracy theories where the earth all of a sudden flat. You know what I'm saying? So like it's almost like you don't want to poke your head out of your circle just in case you run into an old QAnon Gamergate head ass. If you can, you get these moments that make you say, oh, I was led to believe, not despite any evidence, but I was led to believe that Muammar Gaddafi was pure evil. And again, the ethnic cleansings, the things for which the murders that might have happened under I'm talking about a person looked me in the face, a God-fearing man from the continent, essentially told me, hey, you might have the story wrong, which is what I have to tell people all the time about the Black Panthers. You might have the story wrong. But what we understand is how I'm gonna get into this captain here about a small country called Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahm Traroe, and why Black excellence scares the West. Let's do this. When it comes to the full African diaspora of African Americans, Black people out here, Caribbean Black people, Indian Black people, African Black people, we often define ourselves by where the boat dropped us off rather than where we were picked up from, right? That's why you look at a Cuban Black man and be like, but I thought you was Latino. And he like, no, that's where we just got dropped off. Where we came from is the same place you came from. The homie Merce, I remember I was chilling backstage with one of his Crip friends, and who's Cuban too. And he said, people used to always say, hey, but you Cuban, why you look black? He go, nigga, because I am black. You go down to Colombia, they black as hell. Like, we got dropped off all across the Americas. But with that, oftentimes, because this is just a product of imperialism and colonialism, we tend to identify with that group that we got off the boat from more than where we started from. We start allowing for a lot of divide and conquer type beats to take apart our experience. Some of which, once you start talking, you could kind of understand. When you think about Caribbean Black people, Haitians, which is a great example of what I'm about to talk about too, Jamaicans, how they threw off their slave owners. Like those were successful slave rebellions. We didn't do it in America. So sometimes Caribbean Black people kind of look down on us a little bit because we couldn't do it. you know, in some ways. Africans, oftentimes, they get here because they've bought the American dream. But they get here and they start succeeding. A lot of Nigerians, especially down in Houston, some of them end up poor, but some of them actually come from wealth. Like, I know a lot of friends who are like, it's like, they say this to not be funny, but it's like, yeah, our family is royalty back home. It's just, there's just not a lot of opportunities. So we came out here. But like, yeah, back home, my grandparents have servants. Like, it's because of the wealth disparaging. They're like, oh yeah, we're sending money back to the compound back at home. So when they come here and they get it popping, you know, they're thinking, how come black people don't know how to work? Like, why aren't you taking advantage of all of these opportunities you have? You know, so there's this misunderstanding of our experiences and how we interact with each other that oftentimes becomes a hammer or a crowbar that the forces that oppress us continue to use on us. And we kind of like sometimes take it out of their hands and put it on each other. But it seems like we're learning. It seems like we're learning that this old tired playbook, now that the internet exists and we can talk to other Africans, and Africans have come here and they understand. A lot of times I like, bro, I met African people that get to America and they're like, this is the first time I even thought about the fact that I was black. Because I live in a black world. There's no such thing as black. Like, we just don't think about it. And you realize I was black. I've always been my tribe. But you get here, you understand, like, oh, this is a different world. You feel me? But anyway, we're starting to learn. Let me teach y'all about a man, a revolutionary, who right now is in the scopes of the West, and why. Captain Ibrahm Traroe. I can't say his name because it's French. Traroe. And like, French don't roll off my tongue like Spanish. I can speak Spanish. French is real hard for me. Why that man's name is French is because of the African land grab. He is from a small country that is in between. It's north of Ghana and it's south of Mali. A small little country that I'm pretty sure you ain't know existed. You know how I know you didn't know it existed? Because I ain't know it existed. That's how bad. You listen. That's this space right here and how big the world is. He became the ipso facto leader of Burkina Faso in September of 2022. But that was because this was the second military coup that had happened in 7 months. When he came into power, he took out the dude that led the last coup, who he usually actually worked for, named Paul Henry Damiba, right? He led the coup in January of 2022, right? Toppling the former president, who was like just a regular civilian president named Kabore. Please forgive me for my butchering of y'all's African and French name. But the reason why he said he had to remove this last military coup guy was because you wasn't doing nothing to stop any of the jihadists and the extremists that have essentially taken apart our country. What does any of this have to do with America? Well, let me tell you what happened. A few weeks ago, General Michael Langley, he's the head of the U.S. military in Africa, said that this man, during a U.S. Senate hearing, Captain Ibrahm Traroe, was stealing gold and money from his people to fatten his pockets so he can stay in power. So, for some reason, this American general, in a discussion about USAID and about soft power that happens in foreign countries, we remember, again, we talked about USAID. Somehow or another, he put this man in this guy's scope, and he told him that he was corrupt and that he's stealing money from his own people. Now, where have we heard that before? And why would you say that about him? About this tiny, again, country that none of y'all ever heard of. I can say that for a fact, unless you from here, unless you from there. I'm pretty sure none of y'all heard. I mean, unless you Afro studies majors and as in like African, West African studies majors, you probably never heard of this thing. Maybe you from Nigeria or Benin, so you kind of knew this, but or maybe you tapped into the diaspora. But I'm pretty sure this man has not come across your feed until this moment. According to the AP, I'm gonna read this. Earlier this month, General Michael Langley, the head of U.S. military in Africa, accused Traroe during a U.S. Senate committee hearing of using Burkina Faso's gold reserves to benefit the junta at the expense of the population, right? And then crowds and crowds and crowds, massive crowds of protests started happening in Burkina Faso, but in a lot of ways across the African diaspora in support of Captain Ibraham. Why? If he's so corrupt, what has bewitched all these people for them to not know something that the American military knows? And why does the American military even care? Crowds of protesters gathered in the place of revolution in Burkina Faso's capital on Wednesday, chanting, "Long live Captain Traroe," with some holding banners showing a photo of General Langley with the word slave written over his head in red marker. Essentially, they calling him a house nigga. And others waved Burkina Faso and Russian flags, which we'll talk about in a minute, a close ally to the African country, which is probably a hint as to why we started hating on this man. OCB Johnson, he's a musician who came to the protests, said he's not surprised at the accusations launched by Langley because, watch this, Colin Powell lied, Iraq was destroyed, Barack Obama lied, Gaddafi was killed. But this time, the lies won't affect us. That's why we tell them we're not against them, but we are against the predation and economic slavery. Now, I want you to key on that word, economic slavery and predation. And you tell me why America after this man. So let's back up. So this young man born in 1988, right? He graduated valedictorian from his college and he studied geology and went into the military later. He joined the military in 2009, graduated in 2012 and joined the artillery. But he ain't really get hot, right? Rocking his little red beret that throws back to their old there was a revolutionary in the 80s named Tomas, which I'm not gonna talk too much time about this, but he's essentially like almost like the second coming, like a Selassie type character without the religion around it. But he really got hot in 2014 when he went to Mali for a UN peacekeeping program called MINUSA, and he fought against jihadists and ethnic insurgents. Now, back to our informational hole we come into. You hear the term jihadists, you hear the term ethnic insurgents, and you probably think of like a 90s trope, right? But what we need to know and need to remember is that these tropes often come out of prejudice and are way more simplified than they need to be. It's complicated. Or when you hear terms like ethnic insurgencies, if you lean more progressive in the left, you think of these as like noble freedom fighting savages. But they're both racist and incomplete tropes, right? But at the end of the day, here's the thing. You wasn't outside. You wasn't in Africa. Like the people he talking about is like the Boko Haram like type beat, right? You remember them dudes that captured the girls from the little girls' school and held them hostage? You remember them? When we say jihadists, we talk about like offshoots of Al Qaeda, right? We say ethnic insurgencies. These are the people that are fighting back, like the street people fighting back. And a lot of times the ethnic insurgencies are hearkening back to before these random borders were drawn by white people. We've been feuding with these people anyway. And this is how we can retain power, because there's only so many finite amount of resource. And fools get brutal. Fools get real brutal out there. There's discussions around, should Africans accept now that obviously so many years later, should we accept these identities, these national borders that were given to them by Europe. Like, what do you mean Ghanaian? The old the Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, like the Ghana Empire, is not literally where the nation state of Ghana is. This is named after it. There's a question as to like, why don't we go back to our ethnic identities? I mean, it'd be the same question of like, why do any of us identify as being from California? You know, or the state that you're from, those borders are made up. So there's a discussion where it's like, look, dude, it is what it is. We are accepting our Africanness, and it's been so many generations, and identities are malleable. You feel me? Like, you might be a part of this tribe, but if you grew up in the city, you really don't have much connection. Like, there's an ancestry, right? Just like I found my ancestry is Ethiopian, but for me to run around here talking about what's up, Habasha, like, I would be a poser. That's not really who I am. It's my lineage. I wish. It's just not true. I wish I was African. I am of African descent. I am of the diaspora. So these ethnic insurgencies and these jihadists, anyway, the violence that these groups like perpetrate on what is seeming their own people, it's an unbridled violence that like, I just, there's not enough words in the English language for me to get your brain around. The reasoning for their violence can be as complicated or as simple as you might guess, but it's there. He was a part of the regular degulars. People say that he's always been charismatic, but he's quiet. He's just a good soldier. He went out there and he fought against jihadists. And when you fight against people that are trying to take away your freedoms, you become a hero. It just is what it is. So he served a part called the Three Border Area. It's Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Like, and there's a point, if you're looking at the map of Africa, there's a point where all three of these countries touch. Now, you may remember, if you were paying attention, Niger has been in the news for the last 2 years because of their issues with jihadists. It's real over there. Now, when we talk about jihadists, I am not talking about Islam. I'm talking about these particular. Just like when somebody else talk about Christian, I don't mean Trump head ass. Like, I ain't talking about them blowhards. I'm talking about Mama Winnie and them. So you know that there's a difference, right? I just want to make sure that's being clear. These people are a violent rhyme virus, these particular groups that he's like pushing against. And he was made a captain in 2020 when he fought under the leadership of the guy, Paul Henry Damiba, who ended up running the last coup. So as he saw his country actually really being overtaken by jihadists, like town by town, he was out there liberating, freeing these towns. Now let's pause here and talk about like how anybody gets recruited in any of these things anyway. Well, in our network, you got shows like Weird Little Guys, right? And even a lot of stuff that they would talk about in various, Bastards episodes of how people get onboarded to this. A lot of this has to do with lack of resources and a lack of representation and a lack of opportunity. A lot of times when you hear people talk about how they join white supremacist movements, it's not so much that they had any real issue with any other people. They just kind of felt like they were victims, that there is in fact a white genocide, that we are being erased from the earth, that no one accepts the pain that we're going through. And then you spin this story and it becomes easy enough to get recruited into because you start believing this story. The same thing happens a lot of times with like Muslim extremists. or jihadists, it's like you start with this kernel of truth about the way that the West feels about Arab nations. Nigga, you right. And the opportunities that just are not for you. And that it seems that when you just play by the rules, nothing ever works for you. Lonely, you can't get no girl, these promises of, you know, success and wealth, this paradise that should be yours is not here. So you need to go get it. These people have been brainwashed by the West. You need to go get yours. Does that sound familiar? Now, these groups that they join, they don't be as, just like white supremacist group, they don't be as revolutionary as they sell themselves. They just be mafias, right? They're kidnapping, they're doing extortion. They at the end of the day, they just be gangs. Extorting, they're making money, they're stealing resources from the government. You know, when government aid comes into these foreign cities, they just stealing them, right? You try to build a business, you got to run 20% of your business. They're kidnapping and making people pay. Like it's a mafia. They just call themselves jihadists. You know what I'm saying? They say they're doing this holy war. And some of them might be true believers, but how they moving? And the government can't do shit. By 2022, 2 million people were displaced and 50% of their country, half, face starvation. I don't know if you can get your brain around that. Half of America might starve. That's the situation they in. And if you imagine that, imagine how frustrated we are with our presidents. Now imagine that, but 50% of us was starving. Don't you think a coup would happen? And while this is happening, gangs are just roving our street, kidnapping and extorting your teachers. Somebody gonna come in there and take up. Like, nigga, you don't know what you're doing. Get this to me. So, by January 2022, a military coup led by Paul Henry Damiba overthrew the civilian government. But the problem was they still couldn't stop these jihadists. Like for 7 months, they was trying to get this thing cracking, did this thing going on. Now remember, our boy Ibraham is a captain in this army that's supposed to be leading the charge in taking down these jihadists. Now, he's still in the streets. He's still outside. He's still in the front line, still in the trenches. Paul Henry, he up at the Capitol. He a bureaucrat now. He out there sitting in all that air conditioner. So the attacks keep coming and it keeps getting worse. And the people out there doing the fighting, Ibrahim and him, they not getting paid. They're not getting their money. And Ibrahim, who felt like he had a good rapport with Paul Henry, was trying to get these meetings with him and being like, yo, the homies is we starting to feel a way about how this is working. We outside dying. We in this African heat. You up here in this air conditioner. We out here fighting these fights without no resources. And we not getting paid. We can't keep doing this. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was two things happened. There was an attack on this 150 truck convoy that was on its way to these captured, starving villages on the outskirts that the military was leading with all the aid, food, resources, all the stuff that the citizens of Burkina Faso needed. It got attacked by jihadists. 10 civilians were killed and 27 soldiers were killed. Meanwhile, this fool was up in the UN. This fool Paul was up at the UN telling everybody out there that we are really making moves, we're really making progress, right? Folks back home was like, nah, fam, what are you talking about? It's gotten worse. Bruh. That's it, cuz I'm taking this mug over. He tried to meet with him before he got to that point too. And the boy and boy kept giving him the okie doke. Like, why are you not like, what? Our situation is dire out here, my boy. Now, check this out. None of this got to do with America right now. But we're about to see what happened from here. So this man takes over another military coup, steps in charge. And remember, he's already loved. He's gentle. He's the type of alpha male that a lot of you like little dumbass manosphere dudes wish you were. He's gentle. He's soft-spoken. He smiles well, but he's a murderer. And he about that life. And he about his people, and he take care of his family. He take care of his folk. His boys love him. His boys trust him. And he'll put a hole through your chest if he needs to. But he doesn't need to be aggressive. He's smart, and the people love him. So he gets in power and he gets busy. His first step, we need to kick out France. My nigga. What you mean kick out France? Well, Burkina Faso, since the 1800s all the way up until, the 1700s all the way up until 1960, was just a colony of France. Now, once they finally handed over leadership to the African leaders, that's a quote unquote their liberation, there was still a military outpost there. All them niggas don't leave. White boys ain't leave. You the reason why half their names are French is because this was just a French colony. I've been to Cameroon. I've been to French Africa. The French influence on this part of Africa is very thick. Niger, you mean Niger? It's French. They didn't really leave. In South Africa, it's Dutch because they didn't really leave. Right? So he start to get moving, but before he get moving, he got to deal with this dude that they just put out. The dude that they just put out, this was real. This the move that made him the people's champ. Was when the other dude got kicked out, Paul Henry, it was word got back to Captain Ibraham that he was hiding at the French consulate. So he tell the people like, oh, word, your big bad leader that was here before, he over there hiding with the white boys. These white people that have been taking, doggone tariffs and indulgences from your whole people. The reason why y'all can't succeed, these white men that still got armies out here, he hiding over there with them. The people was like, oh, that's it, cuz you gonna run over there with the white boys. They burnt down that French consulate. They was like, we tired of this French rule. You listen, moral of the story is no one likes colonizers. I don't know why. No one likes colonizers, right? So he brought the heat. He brought the heat to France, right? But he was like, listen, in 2023, in early 2023, he told France, like, look, I'm gonna give y'all a month to get your army out of here. Okay. And they left. I can't believe it worked. He kicked them out, right? We gonna take care of ourselves. We gonna figure out what we need to do. You know what this man did? This man brought the food supplies, the food growth, the produce growth. See, they make a lot of rice, but all of this stuff gets exported everywhere else in the world. He said, you know what? I'm going to not let y'all export no more. We need to keep our food here. The gold, because Africa is just covered in gold and other precious minerals, all just come out the water all over. He said, you know what? Listen. These gold refining places, we're going to nationalize them. I'm going to bring them under here so that we can make our own money, right? And I'm going to not approve any of y'all licenses to export gold anywhere else. If you are from somewhere else and you want to open a gold refinery here, I'm going to shut it down. I'm not going to give you no license to open a gold refinery here. We need to start taking care of ourselves. He looked at the IMF and he said, I know y'all give out loans for countries to get themselves off their feet. I don't want your money. He looked at the World Bank and he said, I don't want y'all money. We literally make gold here. I don't need your money. And that, my friend, was his AI Tupac. This is what got him in the scopes of our country. This man told the World Bank, do you know what money's in the World Bank? Do you know what currency? If you listening to the audio medium, I just raised my eyebrows because that's a code for you to know that it's the US dollar. Do you know who run the IMF? Oh, these are Western financial institutions. And since we can do what the hell we want to do, we can partner with who the hell we want to partner with. And your beef with them people is not my beef. He talked to Vladimir Putin. Y'all may or may not know But China and Russia have been making moves in Africa for a long time. There's still a beef. There's still discussions among African activists out there now about should we keep accepting China's money. They building roads, they building airports, and some African activists are like, listen, this is just the new West. They're just going to do what they did to us. It's going to be the same thing. It's the yen now instead of the US dollar. It ain't no different. We still going to be a slave to another country. Other people was like, well, listen, maybe we can learn the lessons from there. And now that we understand that what we bring to the table, maybe we have a little better leverage now. Because I think we're a long way from being able to actually stand on our own 2 feet. So maybe we should accept a little help, a little assistance. But either way, United States, Europe, it's none of your business. Is what Ibraham is saying. And America don't like that. America don't like you talking to Russia, which is so weird to me because, well, they might not have had you not ended USAID. But you know, racist gone racist. This brother flew up to Russia for his version of USAID summit with a bunch of different African leaders. And he made these statements. Quote, the problem is seeing African heads of state who bring nothing to the people who are struggling, singing the same song as the imperialists who call us militia. Do you hear that? You in the wrong information cycle. He was like, the imperialists call us militia. You're calling us militia as derogatory, that somehow or another our fight for self-governance to throw off our imperial leaders is somehow less than we're not a government, we're just a militia. It's derogatory, right? It's demeaning. But he says, but the problem with the rest of you African leaders is, well, you're not doing nothing for your people neither. How are you any different? Right? As a result, they end up referring to us as people who don't respect human rights. Like he said, every nigga in jail, like I said earlier, every nigga in jail ain't Nelson Mandela. Every African leader who tries to talk that talk about self-governance and independence, you're not doing nothing for your people. How are you any different? That's why the world don't think you respect human rights. You ain't no different. I'm different. And it's true. Starvation levels have dropped. They're making so much money already. He said, we African heads of state must stop acting like, check this out, the marionettes who dance each time the imperialists pull our strings. My nigga talking that talk. He said this yesterday, July 27th. This was last year. President Vladimir Putin announced that free grain would be shipped to Africa. Now, we covered this before, how they've been sending grain to Africa. Free grain will be shipped to Africa. This is pleasing, and we say thank you for this. However, this is also a message to our African heads of state. At the next forum, we must not come here without having any ensured self-sufficiency of the food supply for our people. We must learn from the experience of those who succeeded at achieving this. I thank you very much for your grain. We appreciate it. Now, if you say free, you better mean free. Because if not, you could keep it. Because I don't know if you notice, we're in Africa. We can grow everything. There's diamonds in the dirt. And for too long, we've just let y'all come over here with strings attached. I'll give you grain if you give us diamonds. All of a sudden, there's less grain and a lot of diamonds given. All of a sudden, we in these civil wars and we consider the savages and we the militias, we the insurgencies. When we just trying to get these imperialists out here because we just dance, monkey dance every time y'all come in here. Nah, fam, I'm done dancing for y'all. You can help me, that's great, but I'm done dancing for y'all. You can't talk like that in front of these white people. Bruh's brought change. Listen, do you know what he's doing? This man got plans for a nuclear power plant. Do you know that they're making electric cars? I'm going to say this again. This African country you never heard of is making electric cars. Y'all are in the wrong informational pipeline for you to understand what's actually happening in Africa. Now, it ain't all roses, because there was a coup attempt. And this is where America's. The belief of that coup attempt was put together by what they believe was Western forces. I'm giggling because we've done this before. We've done it with Mossadegh. We do this all the time. We destabilize countries all the time. And then we take someone who is a hero to their people and we call them dictators. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a heightened surveillance state out there, right? There is accusations of gross crimes against humanity. Of course there are. But don't it seem so convenient that the person that said you could keep your money, and I'm a tap in with who I want to tap in with, and it's not your business anyway. The person that said you can't just keep taking our gold like this, that maybe we don't need your money, that maybe we could build our own nuclear plants. Maybe I don't need American cars. Maybe we can make our own, and ours won't need gas. That he the dictator. America don't like black excellence. To which I say, we should keep being excellent. So we'll see what's going on. There might be problems with that man. We don't know that. But we also know that's not our business anyway. We seem to only care when you mess with our money. Hood politics, y'all. All right, now don't you hit stop on this pod. You better listen to these credits. I need you to finish this thing so I can get the download numbers, okay? So don't stop it yet. But listen, this was recorded in East Los Boyle Heights by your boy Propaganda. Tap in with me at prophiphop.com. If you're into cold brew coffee, we got Terraform Cold Brew. You can go there.com and use promo code HOOD, get 20% off, get yourself some coffee. This was mixed, edited, and mastered by your boy Matt Osowski, killing the beat softly. Check out his website, mattossowski.com. I'm going to spell it for you because I know. MattoSowski.com. mattossowski.com. He got more music and stuff like that on there, so go and check out the heat. Hood Politics is a member of Cool Zone Media, executive produced by Sophie Lichterman, part of the iHeartMedia Podcast Network. Your theme music and scoring is also by the one and only Matt Alsowski, still killing the beat softly. So listen, don't let nobody lie to you. If you understand urban living, you understand politics. These people is not smarter than you. We'll see y'all next week.